Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Mahmoud Al-Odeh, another video for project cost management. In this video, I will be talking about Chapter 9 from the textbook, which is Project Cost Control. As you know, there are 4 phases for project cost management. These are resource planning, cost estimating, cost budgeting, and cost control. In the first phase, what we do a work breakdown structure where we need to find out what resources needed for that project. And then we estimate the cost. We assign a dollar sign, a dollar value for each of these resources through the cost estimating phase. And then when we have all these details about the resources and we have some cost estimate, we send it to management so they could release some money to work on the project. And once you start working on a project, you have to control these activities. So now let me ask you why we need to control a project. Control project is important because it will help you to check the changes that might happen to the project, especially if we're talking about the baseline cost, the budget for the project. We need to compare the actual spending versus the funds, the plans. So control phase, in the control, any control activity is you need to ensure that what you doing in actual real life is similar to what you planned for. So if there is a variance in there, we have to find out what is the reason for that variance, and we have to find solution. So for example, if you plan to work on a project that will cost you $1,000, after looking into several days in the project, you found that you exceeded the $1,000. So just the process of comparing what you have actually spent versus what you planned, this is what we call it the control. Again, it's controlling. The control is we need to look into the changes for the cost baseline. We need to monitor the actual spending and comparing it to allocated funds and update the project cost. Based on these monitoring activities, we have to update the project cost. There are several tools that we will use in this chapter to find out what would be the project costing. One is the earned value management, and we will talk about the forecasting techniques. We will talk about to complete performance index, the TCPI, and we will take a look into the performance reviews. And of course, there are a lot of software that we could use to help us manage and control a project, including the reverse analysis as well. As the result of using these techniques, the project managers can generate a report with updated information on work performance, cost forecasting, change request, project management plan updates, project document updates, and organizational process assets updates. So it is important that we could compare the actual spending versus what we have planned for, and based on that, we could just do the changes on the project, whether on the cost baseline or the assets or any plans that need to be updated. All right, so now let's take a look into the next thing that we need to look at it. It's the input and the output for the controlling phase. In the controlling phase, as an input, you will need the project management plan. You need the plan for the project. You need to also, as an input, project funding requirement. What are these requirements that you need to get the fund for the project? So why this project is important, and all the details about the importance of the project. Work performance data, if you have any work performance data from your team from previous projects or established parameter for your project, you need to use it as an input. And organizational process assets, where you need to look into what asset you're going to use. And then we bring all these together, we mix them together, we will apply the earned value, we will look into the forecasting techniques, and we will look into the TCPI, we will look into review. There's also additional option for you to use a software. We're not going to use the software in this class, but in the future, you could do a software to manage all of this for you, and also you could do the reserve analysis. As an output, once we're done with earned value forecasting and TCPI and all of this, what we have to have, we will have a work performance information. We will need to look into the work performance, how we are doing with this project, cost forecast, change request, update on the plans for the project, updates for the project documents, and updates for the organization assets. These should be an output. These are basically decisions that should be made based on the control strategies that we used here. That's the earned value, the forecasting, and the TCPI. All right, let's go ahead and start with the first technique. The first technique is called the earned value. The earned value management is a project management tool for monitoring and measuring project performance. Project managers use earned value management to compare the actual work accomplished to the planned work. So again, monitoring is based on actual versus the planned. Using this tool will help you to determine the project cost, whether it's on budget, under budget, or over budget. Also will help you to find out if the scheduled performance status, such as if the project on schedule, behind schedule, or ahead of the schedule. The earned value management is an early warning technique. This is what we use it. It's just going to help you as a project manager to make a proactive decisions to keep the project on track. So it's just going to give you an idea on there are some issues in your project. This is what you need to do, and based on these values, you will make decisions. All right. Before we get started with any example, we have to go over some terms that are important. And these terms you should be familiar with, because without getting familiar with these concepts, you will not be able to do the monitoring phase for any project. So the first concept that we need to talk about is the earned value. And the earned value is the money value assigned for a project based on the percentage of project completion. So this is important because we need to complete a project and we need to find out based on the percentage of that completion, what would be the earned value. Here is an example, a quick example to understand what is the earned value. The earned value of a project if the budget for a project is $1,000 and the team finished 25% of the project, then the earned value would be $250, which means 1,000 times the 25%. So the earned value is 250. The earned value should be different from the actual cost. So the actual cost, once you look into the spending, might be higher or lower than 250. So if we need to summarize the earned value in an equation, the earned value would be equal to the percentage of completion for a project time the planned budget. Now moving into the second concept or term that we will be using, it's called the actual cost. How much the team actually spend on that project. Actual cost is a cost factor used to measure the actual spending on a project activity, which could be the same, higher, or lower than the planned budget. Now, for the planned value, that's a third concept that we need to be familiar with, which is the planned value. It is the estimated budget of a project based on the scheduled percentage completion. In the previous example, if the project budget is $1,000, the team planned to finish the project in 10 days, and today is day six of the project, the planned value is equal to $600. Where we got the $600? Because it's a $1,000 whole budget for the project. We are planning to finish this project in 10 days. Therefore, we are planning to spend about $100 every day. So the planned value for 6 days would be 100 times 6, which equal to $600. Now, the next concept that we need to talk about is budget at completion, or what is called the BAC. The BAC, it's the cumulative budget established for all activities to complete a project. In the previous example, the BAC is the planned budget, which is equal to $1,000. So the budget at completion, it's called the baseline for the project. So whatever the budget for that project, it is the BAC, the budget at completion. Now moving into the next one, which is estimate at completion. Estimate at completion is predicted budget needed for a project to be completed while progressing. And this is just an answer for how much the team will spend at the end of the project. Again, the EAC, or the estimate at completion, is how much the team will spend at the end of the project. So the team in the previous example is still working on the project and forecasted an additional 500 might be needed to finish this project. So the new budget, or what we call the EAC, estimate at completion, would be 1,000, that's the original budget, plus the $500 that we need to ask to finish that project. So the total would be $1,500 or $1,500 for the EAC. All right, now moving into the estimate to complete, that's another concept that we should be familiar with in order to conduct the monitoring phase or the controlling phase in a project. The estimate to complete, or ETC, is the amount of money that will need to be spent to complete the remaining work in a project. Again, the amount of money that will need to be spent to complete the remaining work of in a project, or it would be the answer for this question, how much more the team will spend from this point forward. From this point forward, how much more the team will spend. In the previous example, it was found that the team needed $300 to complete the project. For example, that's what would be the estimate to ETC would be $300, because we know that the team estimated that they need another $300 to finish that project. Now, the last concept here that we need to talk about, variance at completion, or VAC. It is the difference between the project budget, the BAC, the project budget BAC, and the final cost, which is the EAC, estimate at completion. In the previous example, the VAC is negative $500 because the budget is $1,000, and then the team requested another 500. So the estimate at completion is 1,500. So VAC, or the variance at completion, is negative $500. So the team is expected to spend $500 over the budget. Here is a summary of all these terms and abbreviation. So EV, that stands for earned value, AC for actual cost, BV, the planned value, BAC, which is the budget, the baseline budget for a project, or what it's called the budget at completion. BEAC, it's the estimate at completion. Then ETC, estimate to complete. VAC, variance at completion. Now, these are the four concepts that we haven't covered yet, but we will cover it in the next slide or so. The SV, that would be the schedule variance. CV, the cost variance. SPI is the schedule performance index, and CPI is the cost performance index. Budget of remaining work is equal to BAC minus the earned value. Remaining funds would be BAC, which is the budget, minus the actual cost, the AC. All right, let's move to the sum of the factors, starting with the cost variance, CV. These factors basically will divide it into two categories. One is for the schedule and the other one for the cost. So starting with the cost variance, the cost variance is the difference between the budgeted cost of work schedule and the actual cost of work performed. So the CV can be calculated using this equation. CV is equal to EV minus AC, the earned value minus the actual cost. And now with the result of that equation, we have to look at it. If it's positive, that means your project is under budget. If it's negative, that means your project is over budget. If it's zero, that means you are on budget. Moving into the schedule variance, that's another term that we will be using this to monitor and control any project. The schedule variance is the difference between the cost of the work schedule, the plan, and the cost of work performed, the actual. The schedule variance can be calculated by the following equation. SV is equal to EV, the earned value, minus the planned value. The earned value minus the planned value. And remember, the planned value is based on the schedule. The earned value based on percentage of completion in the project. And now, as a result for this calculation, we need to take a look into the outcome for this calculation. If it's positive, that means you are ahead of the schedule. If it's negative, that means your project is behind the schedule. If it's a 0, that means you are on schedule. All right, now moving into the index, the performance index, one for the schedule, one for the cost as well. The SPI, or the schedule performance index, is an index to measure the efficiency of time utilized on a project. And that could be calculated by dividing the earned value by the planned value. Earned value divided by the planned value. And as an outcome, we look into this result for this equation. If it's equal or more than 1, then the project is on schedule or ahead of schedule. If it's less than 1, then the project is not performing as planned. So the team here needs a help, which means that you are late in some of the activities. Now for the cost performance, also another index, but related to the cost. And this measures the actual completed work measured by its earned value compared to the actual cost spent. Again, measure the actual work completed compared to the actual spend. The CPI could be calculated by the earned value divided by the actual cost. The earned value divided by the actual cost. And once we finish this equation, we have to look into the result and see if it's 1 or more than 1. If it's equal to 1 or more, then the project cost performing as planned. So you are doing great. If it's less than 1, then you are exceeded your budget. The project was not performing as planned and your team needs help. So let's go ahead and start with this cost and schedule variance factor, SV versus the CV. So what we need to do, if it's our goal to have both values to be positive. So if we have the CV to be positive and the SV positive, that means your project is under budget and ahead of the schedule. That's the optimal. This is the goal for any project manager. Now, if you have the CV to be positive, but however, the SV is negative, that means you are under budget, and behind schedule, under budget and behind schedule. Now let's take a look into here, this side over budget, whereas the SV is positive, however, the CV is negative. That means over budget and ahead of the schedule. So the SV is related to the schedule because it's positive. That means the project is ahead of the schedule. However, the CV, it's negative, so you are over budget. You exceeded your budget. That's why you get a negative cost variance. In the last case scenario here, which is over budget and behind the schedule, the CV is negative. You exceeded your budget and you are late in the schedule. Both values, the SV and CV, are negative. Now for the performance index, again, what we have to have, we have the 1 to be is the factor for you. If it's 1 or more, this is what we're looking for both values to have a 1 or more. That means under budget and ahead of schedule. That's your goal as a project manager. However, sometimes you are less than 1 for the SP, the scheduled performance index, but more than 1 in the CPI, the cost performance index. That means you're under budget, but however, you are behind in schedule. Now moving into up here to the left upper corner, you will find the SPI is more than 1. However, the CPI is less than 1. So that means that your project is over budget, but you are ahead of schedule. On the last case scenario here, where you have both of them, the SPI and the CPI less than 1, that means that you are over budget and behind a schedule. All right. So I'm going to stop right here. We're going to start another video for this example. I'm going to use Excel So I hope you guys have an Excel open in front of you and you're taking notes of these numbers so we could apply it on Excel. All right, I'll see you in another video.